I had a dream a couple of weeks back where a dream character looked me in the eyes and said, "You're just like your father." In some ways, I was happy. In other ways, I felt broken. It's been in my head since. How would you all feel being told this? Story 1. My father is an incredibly kind, calm, and intelligent human being. I would be honored to be compared to him, though being told that I am just like him would be a blow because that would deny my own struggles and accomplishments. Story 2. My dad is a very admirable man. He was working 3 jobs, falling asleep standing at work. He was sleeping 4 hours a day and such at age 45. Never complained. I worked with him every summer since I turned 16 until I went into full-time employment. Every time a coworker of his found out I'm related to him, they went out of their way to say what a good, hardworking man he is. He is one of the smartest men I know, but he had to leave university because my mother got pregnant and he had to get to work. I could go on for a long time about his good qualities. He also cheated on my mother. I'm quite sure he cheated on his second wife. He only married her because she got pregnant, and it's the right thing to do. I don't think he likes her that much. It depends on the context. Story 3. I am just like my father. We look alike, except that I refuse to grow a full beard and have my mother's thin hair. We talk alike and we think alike. Now that I'm almost 40 and have reached peak adulthood, I even find myself gravitating towards the same style of clothes I was embarrassed that he wore my entire childhood. Our similarities are actually why my mother disliked me as a child. I didn't see it, though. I didn't understand as a child. I wish I had seen that we had so much in common. I may have been able to open up to him a little bit, to talk to him. I thought he didn't like me too, but it turns out he was scared to open up to me the same way I was scared to open up to him. As a result, I had a very lonely, isolated childhood and developed a very bad self-image. The fact that I am so like my father directly led to every bad decision I have made in my life. It is the reason I messed around in high school despite being very intelligent. It is the reason I got kicked out of his house at 17, and it is the reason I dropped out of college and the reason I married someone I barely knew at 20. It is the reason I went to jail. In my late 20s, after mutual divorces, my father and I became friends. We learned we could talk about these things, and we learned we understood each other. He became my best friend. I wish I had known as a child even a fraction of the things I learned during that time. 7 years ago, my sister died. This crushed both of us, and the depression that ensued eventually led to alcohol abuse. Alcohol abuse and heart issues don't mix very well, and it has been 3 years since I lost him too. I am just like my father. That is why I am honest and open with my kids, even though it scares me. That is why I attend personal and group therapy weekly, so I can be the better man he couldn't be. That is why I am working hard to get in shape and take care of myself. I am just like my father, which is why I don't drink. I am proud to be just like my father. Story 4. My father was an abusive person who moved away when I was a child, thankfully. I can see the whirlwind of emotions in my mother's eyes every time I remind her of him, whether through my appearance or behavior. It's a complicated feeling for me. It hurts me that she has to relive terrible memories of him through me. Story 5. I would ask which of my father they are on about. My biological dad spent most of my life either in rehab, prison, or a psychiatric hospital. He dealt drugs and had paranoid schizophrenia. He was always consistent with me, though. Every Monday night at 8 p.m. he called me, and we talked for an hour. Mom never stopped him from seeing or talking to me. When he visited and took me out, my granddad was my guardian. This happened until I was 13. I got to know all his flaws. He had a kind heart, but his demons ruled his mind. He died 2 years ago. My stepdad has been a rock that refused to budge in a river. I have known him since as far back as I can remember. He and my mom were neighbors. They got married when I was 10. He was a mechanic and used to take me out late at night on recovery calls as he knew I didn't sleep well. He is a good man. Took me years to call him dad. Something I regret in all honesty. Always there, always open. He might be quiet, but if you ask him something, you know he will give it his full attention. The kind of guy that would step in front of a car to save a stranger from harm. I am lucky he is still alive and being awesome. So when someone says this to me, I am conflicted, as they have both helped and shaped me to be the man I am today. Story 6. Well, my dad is somewhat of a borderline psychopath, so I am not sure. I might wonder what I had done for them to say that. Then I would probably just carry on with my life. Story 7. My dad walked out and my stepfather was an abusive drunk. Whenever my mom and I got into an argument, she would compare me to the two. Boys on the track team say that when I run, I disappear like my dad. So it balances out. Story 8. My dad is a deadbeat who has spent most of my life in prison and does little more than work minimum wage and spend it all on weed and alcohol when he's out. It's quite possibly the worst insult I could think of being said to me. Story 9. He is one of the smartest people I know, a successful doctor and scientist, and a good person in general. If someone made the remark in general, and they do pretty often because I look like him and we work together, I experience it as a mild compliment. However, he's borderline ignorant sometimes when it comes to anything emotional, so let's say my sister said it during an argument with me, then I'd be insulted. Story 10. My father is the best man I know. I seriously hope someday I can be half the man he is. Someone saying that is probably one of the best compliments one could give me. Story 11. My dad and I look alike, and what's worse, we have similar mannerisms, like the way we walk. It really got under my skin as a teenager when people would compare us, but as I've matured, I'm 34 now, gotten married, had a kid, and so on, I have begun to realize what a compliment it is to both of us. My father has always been very responsible during my lifetime, at least. I've heard some interesting stories from before. He's handy around the house, fun at parties, generous with his time and money. He's a model father and a wonderful grandfather to my son and nephew. If someone wants to tell me that's the kind of man I am, I'll try to take that compliment gracefully because it makes my day. Story 12. My father was a horrible parent. My two siblings and I all feel this way. Saying that to me would be an insult and also flat out wrong. I would just shrug and tell the person that they do not know my father then. Story 13. That would be an insult to me. Although I love my dad, he has always been an oblivious and hard-headed guy, and you could never get him to change his mind. He always thought he was right. Story 14. My dad has had addiction issues his whole life, opioid painkillers. This has led to him being a very selfish person. He used to be a drunk before this. He'd beat my mom, my brother, and me whenever he'd had a drink, which was every weekend. But then he'd grovel and apologize, yet the cycle continued. He's been in and out of prison, never anything long-term but lots of short-term sentences. He also is diagnosed with schizophrenia and post-traumatic stress disorder, which can account for a lot of his behaviors. But despite all that, he's got a heart of gold. He hasn't drunk in around 20 years. He limits his pills every day so he's not wasted and away with it. He's changed his entire life for his family. He had a brutal upbringing. He watched his best friend get murdered. I forgive him for what he did to us. Took me a long time to forgive him, but I do now. He's living proof that people can change. He's now the most selfless man you'll ever meet. He's an amazing granddad. Both kids adore him, and he adores them. I often get told I'm a lot like him. I used to hate it. I'd never lay a finger on a woman or my child. But what people really mean by it is the selfless, caring, funny side to him is what they see in me. So if anyone tells me I'm like my dad, nowadays I take it as a positive. The point of the story is it's absolutely testament to the title. It's an insult but a compliment at the same time. Story 15. My father is a conservative, narcissistic sociopath who doesn't know how to be a parent. He's only a parent in the sense that he had sex. He's missed the mark for at least half a decade now. He doesn't step in to tell my mother to calm down when she goes on one of her shouting matches at my brother or me, or when she can't keep her hands to herself and starts abusing him. He's not effective enough at resolving conflict. The only contribution he makes is to tell everybody to be quiet for the sake of his own eardrums. I'm not sure how he's managed to fool society into thinking he's a respectable doctor for at least 30 years, and not the lazy alcoholic monster he behaves as when around us, but that takes some serious skill. Anyone saying I'm just like him doesn't know the full story. I'd be very offended at that suggestion, but the person making it doesn't know any better, so that comes with some forgiveness for their obliviousness. Story 16. When I was younger, I hated it, but as an adult, I've grown to take it as the best compliment around if you know my dad personally. He's the sweetest man with a heart of gold and would do absolutely anything for his kids. The man cares so much and is goofy. He's smart as anything and can fix anything you throw at him. We are emotionally distant, but I've learned to pick up random cues and things he does that tell me he cares. If I become only a fraction of what that man is, I'll be happy with who I am. Story 17. My wife hit me with that once. I tend to be easily irritable and don't let off the gas on roasting someone over a small mistake, making a big deal of it. My dad did that to me a lot growing up. I can't remember the situation, but I was doing exactly that. And she just said, "Jesus Christ, you're more like your dad every day." It really opened my eyes. I love my dad, though. He's smart financially and works hard at his job. Story 18. That is the worst insult you can throw at me because he was an abuser mentally and physically growing up in the mid-2000s. So hearing my mom comparing me to him, which is pretty rare now, is very disrespectful to hear. Story 19. My dad is a narcissistic, abusive gaslighter. This man taught me everything I know about what not to do when raising my son. This would by far be one of the worst things anyone could say to me, as I have tried my hardest my entire life to be the furthest thing from who he is as a person. Story 20. My dad molested both of his daughters from his first marriage and cut me off halfway through college. The only way I would return to see his grave is if I could urinate on it. I lived my own life as a father simply trying to do the opposite of him, and I think I turned out okay. Story 21. I've been compared to my father, and that usually ends negatively for me. He ran his own business, raised me on his own, and still found time to help others. I already got criticism when I turned down the family business, a decision which my father supported, from the rest of the family, especially from my uncles. This is funny, as they turned down the family business when my grandfather retired. This led to small comments at family gatherings but only got worse after my father passed. It was just this constant pressure and judgment of my actions, which led to me not going to family gatherings anymore. This hurt me quite a lot as I value family greatly. A few years afterwards, they stopped doing the traditional Easter and Christmas gatherings because everyone has their own family now. But in reality, it's because one aunt didn't want to cook on those days anymore. This is also amusing, as the gatherings alternated between the 5 siblings, 2 aunts, 2 uncles, and my dad, so that no one would have to host every year or twice in the same year. My father has been dead for 13 years now, and I feel like I still can't measure up to him. Story 22. A woman I was dating was concerned that I wasn't working as much as I could be, with around 25 hours of classes, 20 hours of work, and 10 to 20 hours of homework and study not being enough, I guess, because I still found time to play games with my friends. She said she was worried that I would become like my father. I was quite confused and asked her what she meant. I don't want you to lounge at home all day. Somehow, she hadn't figured out that my dad is disabled, nor could she see the work that he actually did, including running a home business, for what it was. She wasn't very bright. Story 23. Multiple people said I look like my dad, but personally, I don't really see it. I'm also the only redhead in my household, so if I told you I'm adopted, you wouldn't doubt it much. I do really look like my grandfather did when he was younger. Unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago, but the similarity was almost scary. Story 24. My dad is an ex-gang member, a former junkie, and abandoned me and my mother when I was little. He's tried to come back into my life but has made little progress, giving my mother maybe less than $5,000 over the 19 years I've been alive. Definitely not a flattering comment if made about my personality. If it is about my looks, then it's impersonal. Story 25. I think I would argue against being labeled as just like anyone. My dad is a person like any other. He has a lot of good qualities and some less desirable ones. I'm a lot like him, but only just like myself. Story 26. My dad is a great guy. However, once you upset him, he's different. He's never been abusive towards my mom or us kids, but that temper is nothing to mess around with. When I'm angry, I transform into him with the same mannerisms, facial expressions, and even choice of words. So, overall, yeah, I wouldn't mind at all. Story 27. I am a very solid, present, loyal person just like him. On the other hand, I've spent most of my life burying and avoiding emotions. Only recently am I learning to try to actually explore those repressed feelings. Also, just like him, I can say very hurtful things in the heat of the moment. Story 28. My dad knew everything. He could build anything, be it home improvement, repairing his boat or car. He taught me about computers, how to handle animals, how to cook, how to clean, regular household economics, and how to generally act in the real world. He's done so much for me. So to be honest, I never see it as an insult. I miss him. Story 29. Hi, my dad is an extremely intelligent person, way smarter than I am. He is a university professor, and his students love him even though he lost his passion for the job a long time ago. With that being said, he is also a very unhappy man in his own perspective, looking back at how his life turned out. Both my parents are really good but deeply flawed people, and I love them to bits. When it comes to my father, I see the similarities, which are mostly negative. We are, in fact, very similar, but all that I have learned from him mostly are my own observations of his behavior and my tendency not to repeat it. To give an example, he is a true slob. He is now lazy around the house and believes that housekeeping is woman's work. He does not carry his weight around the house anymore. I see my mom struggling for a long time with this, so I try not to repeat the same mistake. I can get angry like he does, and he rarely listens to another person's opinion and believes it to be valid. I don't want him to look bad from this. He is my dad, and I love him. He just has flaws like we all do, and I am trying not to repeat them because I see myself gravitating toward the same bad patterns sometimes.